A dormant hardware kill switch, Iranian in origin, has been located inside a military-grade microchip powering a United States weapon system. How many of America's most advanced jets, missiles, and drones now carry this Trojan? And can the threat be neutralized before Tehran decides to flip the switch? This is not a software virus. It is not malware that can be detected by a security scan or erased with a patch. This is a hardware Trojan, a malicious modification of the physical circuitry of the chip itself. It is a ghost in the machine, etched into silicon, designed to be completely invisible to all standard diagnostic tests until it is activated. The potential for catastrophic failure is absolute. The origin of the breach has been traced by a multi-agency task force, including the NSA and DIA, to a single point of failure deep within the labyrinthine global semiconductor supply chain. The compromised component is a highly specialized, field-programmable gate array, or FPGA. The fabrication plant, a third-party foundry located in Southeast Asia, was infiltrated by operatives of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Cyber Electronic Command. These agents, operating under deep cover for an estimated period of 18 months, successfully manipulated the chip's design during the fabrication process. They inserted a malicious logic gate, a microscopic kill switch, that now resides within an unknown quantity of FPGAs. These chips were then shipped to American defense distributors, passed all security and quality control checks, and were integrated into the assembly lines of the nation's most sensitive defense programs. The operation displays a level of patience and sophistication previously underestimated. Tehran has bypassed layers of cybersecurity by attacking the physical foundation of modern warfare, the microchip. Every advanced military system, from radar to guidance, relies on the integrity of these components. That integrity is now in question. The arsenal of democracy may contain a fatal, hidden flaw. At the 3-minute mark, the strategic picture darkens considerably. The compromised FPGAs are not used in commercial-grade electronics. Intelligence reports confirm these specific chips, lot number Echo Delta 779er, were exclusively designated for guidance, navigation, and control systems. What does this mean for investors in the $30 billion defense electronics market when the core product is suddenly rendered untrustworthy? This goes beyond simple sabotage. The kill switch is not just an off button. Forensic analysis of a captured sample chip, acquired through a high-level Iranian defector, reveals a far more insidious design. The Trojan can be programmed to introduce subtle, non-catastrophic errors. Imagine an air-to-air missile that inexplicably loses its lock at the final stage of an intercept. A ballistic shield radar that miscalculates a target's trajectory by a mere 5%. A small enough error to go undetected, yet large enough to guarantee failure. The weapon does not simply fail, it appears to malfunction through conventional error, leaving no trace of deliberate interference. This creates plausible deniability for the aggressor, and seeds systemic doubt within the U.S. military command structure. Is it a hardware failure, a software bug, or a deliberate attack? In the heat of conflict, this manufactured uncertainty is as powerful as any explosive. The compromised FPGAs are integral to the ANAPG-81 ESA radar system of the F-35, the central nervous system of America's premier fifth-generation fighter. They are also confirmed to be present in the guidance packages of the latest Block 5 Tomahawk cruise missile and the sensor fusion computers of the MQ-9 Reaper drone. 3 pillars of American power projection are fundamentally compromised. This intelligence was provided at immense risk by a former colonel in the IRGC's Cyber Command. His defection in Ankara 2 months ago was the event that triggered this entire investigation. He provided schematics, activation protocols, and the specific lot numbers of the tainted chips, describing the operation, codenamed Silent Shatter, as Iran's ultimate strategic deterrent against American military action. A poison pill placed at the heart of the Pentagon's arsenal. But the threat profile has evolved again within the last 72 hours. Deeper analysis of the Trojan circuit by DARPA engineers has uncovered a secondary, and perhaps more dangerous, function. The kill switch does not just receive commands, it can also transmit data. The hardware Trojan has a secret back channel. This changes everything. The Pentagon is not just facing a potential mass hardware failure, it is facing an active intelligence breach from within its most classified weapon systems. The chip is designed to listen. During active operation, it can skim microscopic amounts of data from the system's data bus, critical telemetry, targeting coordinates, radar signatures, and exfiltrate it. The transmission method is ingenious. It piggybacks on the device's normal radio frequency emissions, encoding the stolen data in minute, seemingly random fluctuations of the signal's noise floor. It is a digital whisper, nearly impossible to distinguish from background radiation, requiring a highly sophisticated listening post to decode. Tehran is not just positioned to disable American weapons. It is positioned to harvest their most sensitive operational data in real time. The strategic calculus has been upended. Any deployment of these compromised assets is now a potential intelligence windfall for the IRGC. The United States faces an impossible choice: ground its most effective platforms, ceding tactical and strategic advantages, or fly them and risk broadcasting their every move and intention directly to the enemy. In response, a classified directive has been issued by the Secretary of Defense. A fleet-wide, global stand-down order is now in effect for all assets suspected of containing the compromised FPGAs. This silent, undeclared grounding represents one of the most significant readiness challenges the U.S. military has faced since the end of the Cold War. The full economic and geopolitical fallout has yet to be calculated, but initial estimates are staggering. The cost to audit, recall, and replace these components across thousands of systems is projected to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. More critically, the production pipeline for these specialized, military-grade chips is measured in years, not months. This creates a window of profound vulnerability for the United States and its allies, a period where America's technological overmatch, the bedrock of its military doctrine for half a century, is fundamentally in doubt. Intelligence analysts are now racing to understand the kill switch's activation mechanism. The Iranian defector confirmed it is not a simple radio command that could be easily jammed. It is far more sophisticated. The Trojan is keyed to a complex set of environmental and operational triggers. It lies dormant until a precise combination of pre-programmed conditions is met. For example, the chip might activate only when it detects the GPS coordinates of the Strait of Hormuz, a flight altitude above 20,000 feet, and the specific radar emissions of an Iranian air defense battery. This means the weapons could be designed to turn on their users at the most critical moment of a conflict. A fighter jet's systems could fail precisely as it enters enemy airspace. A missile defense interceptor could go inert the moment it detects an incoming ballistic missile launch. The system is not just rigged to fail, it is rigged to fail when it is needed most. The NSA and U.S. Cyber Command are in a desperate, covert sprint to develop a countermeasure. The challenge is monumental. A physical recall of every suspected chip is logistically impossible without gutting the nation's defense infrastructure for years. They must find a way to neutralize the threat remotely, to send a signal that can either disable the Trojan for good or bypass its malicious logic. But to do that, they need the complete activation and authentication key. The defector was able to provide 95% of the key's code. The final, critical 5% was held by only one other person, the lead Iranian engineer who designed the Trojan circuit. That engineer has disappeared from his post in Tehran. 3 days ago, Turkish intelligence tracked his movements to Istanbul. He was last seen boarding a commercial flight, and his destination makes this a global crisis. He was en route to Beijing, reportedly carrying the final activation protocols on a hardened cryptographic drive. The arrival of this engineer on Chinese soil immediately escalated the situation from a contained crisis to a potential superpower confrontation. A CIA Special Activities Division team, already pre-positioned in the region, was activated with a single objective: intercept the engineer and his drive at all costs. But as the chase began, a chilling counter-narrative was starting to form back at Langley. A junior analyst, running pattern recognition algorithms on the original defector's testimony, flagged a fatal inconsistency. His timeline, his access, the very details of his escape from Iran, none of it held up under deep-level scrutiny. The entire premise of the investigation began to unravel. What if the defector wasn't a godsend? What if he was a ghost? A carefully constructed fiction designed to feed the Pentagon a very specific and very terrifying story? The IRGC kernel never existed. The defection in Ankara never happened. The intelligence wasn't handed over. It was planted. It was a Trojan horse story, delivered to warn of a Trojan horse chip. The irony was catastrophic. This revelation reframes the entire crisis. Silent Shatter wasn't Iran's ultimate deterrent. It was phase one of a far more ambitious and insidious campaign. They didn't just want the ability to switch off America's arsenal. They wanted America to do it to itself. By feeding the Pentagon this terrifying but plausible threat, they triggered the exact response they wanted: a self-inflicted, system-wide paralysis. They made the U.S. military ground its own Air Force and dry dock its own Navy, all without firing a single shot. The economic damage, the blow to global readiness, the message of American vulnerability, All of it was achieved by manipulating the Pentagon's own threat assessment protocols against it. But if the kill switch was a scare tactic, a lie wrapped around a kernel of truth, then what is the chip's real primary function? The data exfiltration is real, but intelligence analysts now fear it's a sideshow, a noisy distraction from something far more sinister that DARPA's engineers somehow missed. The operation was never called Silent Shatter. According to a newly decrypted communication intercepted between Tehran and an unknown party, its true name is Sovereign Parasite. The name implies not a simple failure, but a hostile takeover. The chip isn't a poison pill designed to kill the host. It's a parasite designed to control it. And the Iranian engineer in Beijing? He wasn't defecting. He wasn't running for his life. He was an emissary. He was hand-delivering the final piece of the puzzle, the cryptographic key. Not to the highest bidder, but to a strategic partner. U.S. intelligence, watching the drama unfold, made a horrifying discovery. The men who met the engineer were not agents of China's Ministry of State Security. Their biometrics didn't match any known intelligence asset. They were ghosts. But the faint SIGINT signature from a device one of them was carrying, it matched a signature detected only once before, at the scene of a covert arms deal in North Africa, linking Iranian hardware to a Russian private military contractor. The Russian connection changes everything. This wasn't a transaction. It was a handover, a strategic alignment that redraws the entire map of global power. But it raises a terrifying question. Was Iran the mastermind, or just the middleman? What if the sovereign parasite isn't Iranian technology at all? The question was never just about the technology. It was about the doctrine behind it. This level of elegant, patient, multi-layered deception didn't bear the hallmarks of Tehran. It had the cold, meticulous signature of Moscow's SVR. The sovereign parasite is a Russian design, a generational leap in hybrid warfare, laundered through Iran to provide a buffer of deniability. A weapon of conquest designed for an era where borders are irrelevant. DARPA's top minds, now working with the NSA, finally cracked the chip's core function. It wasn't just to control, it was to retask, to seize control of a system, not to shut it down, but to give it new orders. The parasite could whisper new coordinates to a Tomahawk missile mid-flight. It could turn a defensive Aegis cruiser into an assailant. It could tell a squadron of F-35s that their home base was a hostile target. It weaponized America's trust in its own technology. Then, the first shoe dropped. At 0400 Zulu, a U.S. surveillance satellite monitoring naval movements in the South China Sea suddenly, and without command, reoriented its primary optics. It was a message, a demonstration, a flexing of digital muscle from halfway around the world. The Russians weren't just holding the key, they were putting it in the lock. The final intelligence assessment, delivered to the president an hour ago, was the bleakest in a generation. The United States was in a state of strategic checkmate. Every advanced weapon system was now a loaded gun held by an adversary. To disarm it meant national paralysis. To leave it armed meant risking a self-inflicted catastrophe. But the true nightmare, the final layer of this Russian doll, was discovered only moments ago. A frantic cross-referencing of the chip's base architecture with global supply chain manifests revealed the unthinkable. This wasn't just a military problem. The parasite is global. It's dormant inside the digital plumbing of our entire civilization, waiting for the signal. The goal was never just to disarm America. It was to hold the entire interconnected world hostage. We are now living in the opening seconds of a new kind of world war. There will be no declarations, no armies crossing borders. The front lines are invisible, running through the code that powers our lives. The choice is no longer between war and peace, but between freedom and control. Navigating this new reality is the challenge of our time. To stay informed, to understand the threats before they manifest, subscribe to global_crisis_radar. The silent war has already begun.